Buckle up! We're talking about a 30-year-old coordinator with 230 years of offensive knowledge. Yeah, you heard that right. Who's got the best OC in the league, saying he's going to be a head coach real soon. A legendary logo that vanished and now might be making a comeback in 2026 with brand new uniforms. Could this be the sign that the old name is coming back too? And a secret candidate for DC that nobody's talking about, but who developed Pro Bowlers under Subban and was the only coach retained by a defensive genius. 3 bombshells that are going to flip everything you thought you knew about the Commanders. Don't dip now. Hit that like, subscribe, and stay till the end, because this is just getting started. News 1. David Bloor and his 230 years of offensive wisdom. Bro, when the Commanders named David Bloor as offensive coordinator, the reaction was mixed. And I get it. Dude's 30. It's his first OC gig in the NFL. A lot of fans were like, for real? This is the move? But here's the thing. If all you see is the number 30 and the word rookie, you're missing the whole picture. Because David Bloor ain't your average rookie coordinator. This man is a Voltron of offensive schemes. And if you don't know what Voltron is, Google it. But basically, it's a giant robot made up of smaller parts that come together to form something powerful. That's Bloor. Here's why. Bloor isn't just a disciple of one offensive guru. He didn't come from the Shanahan tree or the McVay school. He's a journeyman in the best way possible. He's worked with Jeff Brome, Todd Monken, Darrell Bevell, Drew Petzing, Kevin O'Connell, Anthony Lynn, Ben Johnson, and even Cliff Kingsbury. Each of those names represents a different offensive philosophy. Air raid, West Coast, wide zone, RPOs, basketball on grass, ground and pound. Bloor knows them all. And not just knows them, he's studied them, played in them, coached in them. So when we say Bloor brings 230 years of offensive knowledge, we're not exaggerating. That's literally the combined experience of all the coaches he's worked with. And that, fam, is a huge advantage. While other young OCs are tied to one system, Bloor can mix and match. He can go air raid if Jaden Daniels needs tempo and RPOs. He can switch to power gap if the situation calls for it. He can design plays that confuse defenses, but are simple for the offense to execute. That kind of versatility is gold. And it's not just me saying this. Ben Johnson, current head coach of the Bears and former OC of the Lions, where Bloor played, said this about him. He's really smart, has a natural way of connecting with everyone, coaches and players. I know he's highly respected, not just by me, but by the Washington staff. I think he'll do an outstanding job in that role. I believe he's one of those young guys who'll land a head coaching job sooner than people think. Bro, Ben Johnson, the guy everyone wanted as a head coach this year, the guy who's changing the offensive game. That guy is saying Bloor's next up. Let that sink in. Now, does that mean Bloor's going to be perfect from day one? Nah, of course not. There's a difference between knowing and doing. And Bloor's going to have to learn how to apply all that knowledge in real time, under pressure, with the cameras rolling. He's going to make mistakes. There'll be plays that flop. There'll be moments where we're like, what was that? But that's part of the process. What matters is that Bloor has the tools, the knowledge, and the support to learn fast. Because he's not alone. He's got Anthony Lynn coaching the running backs, a guy with head coach and OC experience. He's got Brian Johnson on staff. He's got Dan Quinn, who even though he's a defensive guy, knows how to build a winning team. And most importantly, he's got Jaden Daniels, a quarterback who's as smart as he is talented, a guy who can take in info fast and execute it on the field. The key for Bloor is going to be balance. He can't make it too complex. Daniels is a second-year QB, but he can't make it too basic either. NFL defenses are no joke. He's got to find that sweet spot where the offense is complex enough to keep defenses guessing, but simple enough for Daniels to run with confidence. And I think he's going to pull it off, because Bloor's been on both sides. He played QB in the NFL. He knows what it's like to be in the huddle, read a defense, make split-second decisions. That experience is priceless. A lot of OCs never played in the league. Bloor did. That gives him a unique perspective. Plus, he's young, 30 years old. That means he can relate to Daniels in a way a 50-year-old OC can't. They speak the same language. They can build real trust. And in the NFL, that QB-OC relationship is everything. If Daniels trusts Blau, believes in the game plan, feels understood, then the offense is gonna click. Simple as that. So what kind of offense are we gonna see? That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, we don't know yet. But based on Blau's background, I expect a mix. I expect RPOs. Daniels thrives in those. I expect tempo plays. Daniels can handle that. I expect creativity. Blau learned from Ben Johnson, one of the most creative OCs in the league. And I expect adaptability, because Blau knows there's no one-size-fits-all. What I don't expect is a stale offense. I don't expect the same thing over and over. Blau's got too much knowledge, too many tools in his toolbox to fall into that trap. And that, fam, is exciting, because it means every week we'll see something new. Every opponent will have to prep for multiple looks. And that makes our offense unpredictable. And in the NFL, unpredictable is good. So yeah, David Blau is a rookie OC, but not in the traditional sense. He's been prepping for this moment his whole life. He's learned from the best. He understands the game on a deep level, and he's got the talent and support to succeed. And me, I'm hyped, because I think Blau's going to shock a lot of people. I think he's going to prove that age is just a number. And I think, alongside Jaden Daniels, he's going to build one of the most exciting offenses in the NFL in 2026. Okay, bro, but let's hit pause on the offense for a sec. Because now we're diving into something that's got fans fired up. The uniforms. And yeah, this matters. Because the drip is part of the game, fam. News. 2. The possible return of the Spear logo in 2026. Listen, I know some folks say uniforms don't matter, winning does. And yeah, they're right. To a point. Winning is the top priority, no doubt. But uniforms? They're part of a team's identity. They're part of the culture. And for a franchise like the Commanders, which has gone through a ton of changes in recent years, having a strong visual identity is a big deal. And it looks like 2026 might finally be the year we lock that in, according to Zach Cohen from FanDuel, who's got a solid track record when it comes to predicting uniform changes. The Commanders are getting new uniforms this year. Not just tweaks, but a full-on redesign. And here's the kicker. Cohen speculates that the Spear logo might be making a comeback. Bro, the Spear. If you've been rocking with this team for a while, you know how iconic that logo is. It's part of our DNA. And when it got pulled, a lot of fans were heated. Because the Spear stood for something. It stood for tradition. It stood for pride. It stood for the Commanders, or Redskins back then, during the glory days. Now Cohen makes it clear, this is speculation, not confirmation. But there are signs. The Commanders have been slipping spears into their graphic designs. They've started a tradition where legends from the organization show up at games holding, yep, you guessed it, a spear. That's not random, fam. That's the team laying the groundwork for a comeback, and it makes sense. The throwback uniforms we wore as alternates in 2025, those Super Bowl-era classics, were a hit. Fans loved them, clean, timeless, with that nostalgic vibe that hits deep, and everything points to those throwbacks becoming our main uniforms in 2026, with a burgundy version to round out the home and away set. So what about the alternate uniform? Because before, we had those black ones with the military-style numbers and the W on the helmet. And yeah, those weren't for everybody. Some fans dug them, others hated them, but they were definitely bold. Now, if the Spear's coming back, we could be looking at an alternate uniform that blends the best of both worlds. The classic throwback style with the iconic Spear logo. And that, bro, would be straight fire. Picture it, a burgundy helmet with a gold spear. A uniform that honors the past, but still feels fresh. That's what we might be getting. And the timing checks out. Normally, teams can only change their primary uniforms once every 5 years. But that rule gets more flexible when there's a change in ownership. And the Commanders had that change in 2023 with Josh Harris. The uniform redesign process takes about 18 months. So if Harris started the process shortly after taking over, then 2026 lines up perfectly for the full reveal. That also explains why we use the throwbacks as alternates in 2025. It was like a soft launch, a way to test the waters, gauge fan reaction, and get ready for the full switch in 2026. And based on the response, it was a home run. So what does this mean for us as fans? It means we're finally getting a visual identity we can be proud of. One that connects to the franchise's history, but also looks forward. One that says, we're the Commanders, and we're here to stay. And yeah, I know some people will still say, it's just a uniform. But it's not. It's more than that. It's a symbol. It's a statement. It's the organization telling us, we get it. We understand what it means to be a commander. We respect the history. And we're going to honor it while building something new. And that, fam, is powerful. Because when the players put on those uniforms, when they see that spear on the helmet, they're going to feel the weight of the legacy. They're going to feel the responsibility to represent all the greats who came before. And that's going to push them to play harder, give more, be better. So yeah, I'm hyped for the uniforms. I'm hyped for the possible return of the spear. And I'm hyped because finally, after years of chaos and change, it feels like the Commanders are finding their identity. And that's a beautiful thing. Bro, News 3, Carl Scott, the sleeper, pick for defensive coordinator. Bro, when you think about potential defensive coordinator hires for the Commanders, your mind probably goes straight to the big names. Brian Flores, Jonathan Gannon, guys with NFL DC experience, guys who've called plays in the playoffs. And yeah, those are legit candidates, no doubt. But there's one name flying under the radar that deserves way more attention. Carl Scott. So who's Carl Scott? He's currently the defensive pass game coordinator and DB's coach for the Seattle Seahawks. And before you say, okay, but that's not a DC, let me break down why this dude is different. First off, when Mike McDonald became head coach of the Seahawks in 2024, he only kept one coach from the previous staff, Carl Scott. That says a lot. McDonald, who came from being the DC of the Ravens and is considered one of the brightest young defensive minds in the league, saw something in Scott worth keeping. And not just keeping, he made him a key part of his new staff. And that's big because McDonald brought in a completely different system. Pete Carroll, the previous head coach, ran a heavy cover 3 scheme. McDonald runs a defense built on disguises, versatility, and confusion. And Scott, he didn't just survive the transition, he helped lead it. He taught the new system to the players, he helped make it smooth, and the results showed. But Scott's ability to adapt isn't new. Before Seattle, he worked with the Minnesota Vikings under Mike Zimmer, who ran a totally different system focused on A-gap blitzes and pressure. Scott was the DB's coach there too. And before that, he was at Alabama under Nick Saban, where he helped develop corners like Trevon Diggs and Patrick Surtain-Sarkudu. And even before that, he was grinding at places like Texas Tech, Tusculum College, and Delta State. This guy's been everywhere, fam. And at every stop, he's made an impact. At every stop, he's learned something new. At every stop, he's proven he can teach, develop, and adapt. Now, I know what you're thinking, but he's never been a DC in the NFL. True, but neither had David Blau been an OC, and we already talked about why that's not necessarily a problem, because Scott has called plays before. He did it at the FCS level as a DC, and while that's not the NFL, it shows he knows how to build a game plan, make adjustments, and put his guys in position to win. More importantly, Scott has something a lot of DCs don't, a proven ability to develop defensive backs. And in today's NFL, where the passing game rules, having a DC who can build up your secondary is crucial. Look at what he did with Tariq Woolen as a rookie, 6 picks, franchise record. Look at what he did with Devon Witherspoon, turned him into a slot weapon, both in coverage and as a blitzer. And that's exactly what the Commanders need. Our secondary's been shaky. We've got talent, but we haven't maximized it. A guy like Scott, who's shown he can take raw talent and turn it into playmakers, is exactly what we're missing. Plus, Scott brings scheme flexibility. He's worked in cover 3 systems, A-gap blitz schemes, and now McDonald's disguise heavy defense. That means he can tailor his scheme to fit the players we have, instead of forcing players into a rigid system. That adaptability is priceless. And here's the thing, Dan Quinn is a defensive guy. He gets it. He can help Scott transition into the DC role. They can collaborate, build something together. That's different from hiring a veteran DC who comes in with his own system and his own way of doing things. With Scott, Quinn has a chance to mold, mentor, and create something from the ground up. And yeah, there's risk. There's always risk when you hire someone without experience in the role, but there's also upside. Because Scott is young, relatively, hungry, smart, and has something to prove. And those are the kinds of coaches who sometimes end up being stars. Now, I'm not saying Scott should be the automatic hire. Flores and Gannon are great options too. But what I am saying is that Scott deserves to be in the conversation. He deserves serious consideration because he's got all the tools to be a successful DC in the NFL. He just needs the shot. And if Quinn gives him that shot, I think Scott's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to prove you don't need 10 years of DC experience to be great at the job. I think he's going to build a defense that's tough, smart, and versatile. And I think a few years from now, we'll be looking back saying, damn, that was a genius hire. So yeah, Carl Scott is the sleeper candidate. But he shouldn't be, because this dude has everything it takes to be a great DC. And the Commanders would be smart to give him a real look. All right, fam, there you have it. 3 stories that show the Commanders are finally doing things right. They're hiring smart, versatile coaches like David Blau. They're honoring their history while building the future with new uniforms and the possible return of the spear. And they're looking at under-the-radar candidates like Carl Scott, who could end up being absolute steals. And all of this, bro, is part of something bigger. It's part of a culture shift. It's part of an organization that's finally making smart decisions, thinking long-term, and building something sustainable. And as fans, that's all we can ask for, because we've been through it. We've dealt with years of mediocrity, drama, and instability. But now it feels like we're finally on the right path. And that's exciting, man. So if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and in the comments, let me know, are you hyped about David Blau as OC? Do you want to see the spear make a comeback? Do you think Carl Scott should be the next DC? I want to hear what you think, fam, and I'll catch you in the next video, where we keep breaking down everything going on with our Commanders. Hail